Bill Gates, the co-founder of Microsoft, is one of the most prominent figures in the tech industry. His journey to the top of the technology world wasn't just a tale of innovation and vision. It was also about navigating the fierce and competitive battles that defined Microsoft's early years. These early wars were about more than just competing for market share. They were about shaping the future of computing. From the early days of personal computing to the rise of the internet, Microsoft's wars were battles that helped define the very structure of the modern tech industry. In this section, we'll explore the beginnings of Microsoft, focusing on its early struggles, strategies, and decisions that were pivotal in its rise to dominance. The formation of Microsoft and its early days. Bill Gates and his childhood friend Paul Allen had always been interested in computers. Gates, born in 1955, was an exceptional student with a particular interest in mathematics and science. By the time he was in high school, Gates had already demonstrated his abilities by writing computer programs. He and Allen founded the Lakeside Programmers, a group that made money by programming a computer to schedule appointments for local businesses. In 1975, Gates and Allen found an opportunity that would change their lives. They saw an article in Popular Electronics about the Altair 8800, a microcomputer designed for hobbyists. Gates and Allen saw the potential to create software for this machine, and they wrote a version of BASIC, a programming language that could run on the Altair. This was the beginning of Microsoft. By 1976, Gates dropped out of Harvard University and Microsoft was born. The company's first big break came in 1980 when IBM approached Microsoft to provide an operating system, OS, for their new personal computer, the IBM PC. IBM had underestimated the importance of the OS, and Gates and Allen capitalized on this by purchasing an existing operating system, QDOS, Quick and Dirty Operating System, and renaming it MS-DOS. This deal with IBM was a game changer, as it set Microsoft on the path to becoming the dominant player in the PC market. The early wars, competition with Apple. The first major battle for Microsoft came in the form of its rivalry with Apple. Apple, founded by Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, was one of the first companies to make personal computers widely accessible to consumers. Apple's Macintosh, introduced in 1984, was a revolutionary product, with its graphical user interface, GUI, setting it apart from the command line interfaces of other computers at the time. Microsoft had initially been focused on software, but with the success of MS-DOS, Gates saw the opportunity to compete directly with Apple in the OS market. In 1985, Microsoft released Windows, a graphical interface for MS-DOS. This move was seen as an attempt to replicate Apple's Macintosh, and it sparked a bitter rivalry between the two companies. Apple accused Microsoft of stealing its intellectual property, and in 1988, Apple filed a lawsuit against Microsoft claiming that Windows was too similar to the Macintosh. This legal battle would go on for years, but ultimately the courts ruled in Microsoft's favor. Microsoft's strategy, though controversial, was to move quickly and aggressively in the market, leveraging its licensing agreements with PC manufacturers to push Windows to the forefront of the personal computing world. The rivalry with Apple was not just a legal or business battle, it was a cultural one. Apple positioned itself as a company for the creative class, marketing the Macintosh as a tool for artists, musicians, and designers. Microsoft, on the other hand, saw itself as a tool for business, focusing on the functionality and practicality of its products. Gates and Jobs had very different visions of what personal computing should be, and their companies' paths diverged accordingly. The role of IBM and the rise of clones. IBM's decision to enter the personal computer market was another key moment in Microsoft's early years. While the deal with IBM provided Microsoft with the platform it needed to succeed, it also created a highly competitive market for OS software. IBM's decision to use MS-DOS as the operating system for its PC was a huge win for Microsoft, but it also opened the door for other companies to create compatible machines, often referred to as IBM clones. The rise of IBM clones was a pivotal moment for Microsoft because it meant that Microsoft's OS could be licensed to multiple manufacturers, creating a vast ecosystem of computers running MS-DOS and later Windows. This was in stark contrast to Apple's approach, which controlled both the hardware and software of its Macintosh computers. While Apple's vertical integration gave it more control over the user experience, it also limited the reach of its product. Microsoft's strategy, on the other hand, allowed its software to be ubiquitous, running on a wide range of machines from different manufacturers. Gates recognized early on that the key to Microsoft's success was not just creating a great operating system, but also creating an ecosystem. Microsoft focused on ensuring that its OS was compatible with as many computers as possible. This open licensing model, which allowed manufacturers to build their own PCs with MS-DOS or Windows, was a major factor in Microsoft's rise to dominance. However, the rise of IBM clones also created new challenges for Microsoft. The company had to continually improve its products to stay ahead of the competition. This led to Windows 3.0 in 1990, which was a significant improvement over earlier versions of the software. Windows 3.0 offered a more user-friendly interface and better support for hardware, and it helped solidify Microsoft's position as the leader in the personal computing market. The importance of the developer ecosystem. One of the key lessons from Microsoft's early wars is the importance of the developer ecosystem. While hardware manufacturers were critical to the growth of Microsoft's OS, it was the software developers who truly made the difference. Gates understood early on that the success of Microsoft's operating system depended not just on its own products, but also on the third-party software that would run on it. In the early years of Microsoft, Gates made a concerted effort to ensure that developers have the tools they needed to build software for Microsoft's platform. This included the creation of development environments like Visual Basic and the establishment of a developer network that provided resources and support. By fostering a strong developer ecosystem, Microsoft was able to attract a wide range of applications, making its operating system even more valuable to users. The developer ecosystem was a critical part of Microsoft's strategy, and it remains a key lesson in today's tech industry. Companies like Google, Apple, and Amazon have all learned the importance of fostering developer communities to build the ecosystem around their products. Without a strong ecosystem, even the best hardware or software can struggle to gain traction. Microsoft's dominance and the rise of the Internet. By the early 1990s, Microsoft had become the dominant player in the personal computing market. Its Windows operating system was the standard for PCs, and the company had expanded into other areas like Office software with the release of Microsoft Office. Microsoft was, by all accounts, an unstoppable force in the tech industry. However, a new challenge loomed on the horizon: the rise of the Internet. In the mid-1990s, the Internet began to gain traction as a global communication tool, and companies like Netscape and AOL were among the first to capitalize on the web's potential. Microsoft, which had been focused on desktop computing, initially underestimated the importance of the Internet. In 1995, Netscape released its Navigator browser, which quickly became the dominant web browser. Gates, realizing that the Internet was going to be a transformative force, made a dramatic shift in Microsoft's strategy. In 1995, Microsoft released Internet Explorer, a web browser designed to compete with Netscape Navigator. This marked the beginning of Microsoft's second great battle, the browser wars. The browser wars were some of the most intense battles of the 1990s, and they had lasting implications for the tech industry. Microsoft's strategy was aggressive. It bundled Internet Explorer with Windows, effectively giving it a monopoly on the browser market. This move was seen as an attempt to crush Netscape, which had been the leader in the browser market before the release of Internet Explorer. In 1998, the U.S. Department of Justice filed an antitrust lawsuit against Microsoft, accusing the company of using its monopoly in the operating system market to unfairly dominate the browser market. The case became one of the most high-profile antitrust cases in history, and it had significant implications for Microsoft. The company was accused of stifling competition and engaging in anti-competitive practices, and in 2000, Microsoft was found guilty of violating U.S. antitrust laws. The antitrust case against Microsoft was a turning point for the company. While it ultimately avoided a breakup, the case forced Microsoft to change its practices and led to increased scrutiny of its business practices. The case also had a lasting impact on the tech industry, setting a precedent for how governments would regulate monopolistic behavior in the digital age. The end of the browser wars and the rise of Google. By the early 2000s, the browser wars had essentially come to an end. Microsoft's Internet Explorer was the dominant browser, but it faced growing competition from new players like Mozilla Firefox and later Google Chrome. Google, in particular, emerged as a major threat to Microsoft's dominance, not just in the browser market, but also in the search and advertising industries. Google's rise was one of the most significant challenges to Microsoft's reign in the tech world. While Microsoft had focused primarily on desktop computing and software, Google had set its sights on the Internet itself. Google's search engine revolutionized the way people accessed information online, and its business model, based on targeted advertising, became one of the most lucrative in the world. For Microsoft, the rise of Google was a reminder that the tech industry is constantly evolving. Just as Microsoft had risen to dominance by capitalizing on the growth of personal computing, it now faced the challenge of adapting to the rise of the Internet and the shift toward cloud computing. The company would have to adjust its strategy once again to remain relevant in an increasingly connected world. The evolution of Microsoft from software to cloud. The early wars of Microsoft, from the competition with Apple to the browser wars, shaped the company into the powerhouse it is today. However, the challenges Microsoft faced in the 1990s and early 2000s were only a prelude to the seismic shifts that would occur in the tech industry over the next 2 decades. The rise of cloud computing, mobile devices, and new platforms would force Microsoft to rethink its business model once again. In the 2010s, Microsoft faced a new set of challenges. The rise of mobile computing, led by Apple's iPhone and Google's Android, shifted the focus of the tech industry away from personal computers and towards smartphones and tablets. Microsoft, with its heavy reliance on Windows and Office software, found itself struggling to keep pace with the mobile revolution. While Apple and Google thrived in the mobile space, Microsoft's attempts to enter the mobile market with Windows Phone were met with limited success. Satya Nadella and the cloud transformation. In 2014, Bill Gates stepped down from his day-to-day role at Microsoft, and Satya Nadella took over as CEO. Nadella's leadership marked a dramatic shift in Microsoft's strategy. Under his leadership, Microsoft embraced cloud computing as its future, and the company began to pivot away from its reliance on traditional software products like Windows and Office. Nadella's decision to focus on cloud computing was a game changer for Microsoft. The company's Azure platform, which provides cloud services to businesses and developers, became one of the most important products in Microsoft's portfolio. The shift to the cloud allowed Microsoft to remain relevant in a world where mobile devices and web-based applications were becoming the dominant computing platforms. Nadella also made a series of strategic acquisitions, including the purchase of LinkedIn in 2016 and GitHub in 2018. These acquisitions allowed Microsoft to expand its reach beyond traditional software and into new areas like social networking and developer tools. Under Nadella's leadership, Microsoft transformed from a software company to a cloud-first company, and this transformation has been one of the most successful corporate turnarounds in recent history. The ongoing legacy of Microsoft's early wars. Looking back at Microsoft's success, it's clear that the company was built on its ability to adapt and compete in an ever-changing market. From its battles with Apple and IBM to its struggles with the Internet and mobile devices, Microsoft has always had to innovate and evolve to stay ahead of the competition. The lessons from Microsoft's early wars are still relevant today. The importance of ecosystems, the dangers of monopolistic behavior, and the need to embrace new technologies are all lessons that continue to shape the tech industry. As companies like Apple, Google, and Amazon continue to dominate the digital economy, Microsoft's ability to adapt to changing market conditions remains one of its most valuable assets. In the end, Bill Gates' vision and leadership played a crucial role in shaping the modern tech industry. The early wars of Microsoft not only taught Gates and his company how to navigate fierce competition, but also set the stage for the company's transformation into a global leader in cloud computing and other emerging technologies. The shift to enterprise software, embracing new markets. While Microsoft was synonymous with Windows and Office for most of the 1990s and early 2000s, it became clear in the 2010s that the landscape of technology was shifting. Consumer markets were increasingly moving toward mobile apps, social networks, and cloud-based services, leaving Microsoft's traditional software offerings to face significant competition. As Microsoft navigated this new era, the company had to adapt once again by pivoting its focus toward enterprise software and cloud computing. This shift marked a critical moment in the company's evolution, and the groundwork for it was laid under Bill Gates' leadership. The rise of Office and the move to the cloud. For years, Microsoft Office had been a key revenue generator for the company. From its humble beginnings as a productivity suite for businesses, Office grew into the world's most widely used software package for word processing, spreadsheets, and presentations. However, with the advent of cloud-based productivity tools from competitors like Google's Suite, now Google Workspace, and Apple's iWork, Microsoft faced new challenges. The shift to cloud computing also meant that more people were moving away from installed software. SaaS, software as a service, models, where users pay for access to software over the cloud, became increasingly popular. These services allowed businesses and individuals to access their tools anywhere with an internet connection, eliminating the need for physical software installations. Bill Gates, while still heavily involved in the early stages of Microsoft's transformation, had already set the stage for the company to evolve beyond traditional software products. Under the leadership of Steve Ballmer and later Satya Nadella, Microsoft recognized the importance of cloud computing for enterprise applications. The transformation began in earnest with the launch of Microsoft 365, a cloud-based version of Office that introduced subscription-based services instead of perpetual software licenses. One of the most pivotal moments in Microsoft's transformation came with the launch of Azure, Microsoft's cloud platform, in 2010. Azure offered infrastructure, software, and platforms as services, allowing businesses to build, deploy, and manage applications through a global network of Microsoft-managed data centers. This initiative was part of Microsoft's broader strategy to become a cloud-first company, and it was positioned to compete with Amazon Web Services, AWS, the clear market leader in cloud computing. Azure's rise was essential for Microsoft's adaptation. Rather than relying solely on its traditional desktop software, Microsoft embraced the rapidly growing trend of cloud services, providing an infrastructure that businesses of all sizes could leverage. The move into the cloud helped Microsoft extend its enterprise software reach, ensuring its relevance in the next era of computing. The company started seeing Azure as a critical differentiator, and by 2019, Azure became a major player in cloud services, helping to solidify Microsoft's continued dominance in the enterprise software market. Acquisitions, strengthening Microsoft's position in enterprise and cloud. As part of its push into the cloud and enterprise markets, Microsoft made a series of acquisitions designed to strengthen its position. One of the most significant of these was the 2014 acquisition of Minecraft, the wildly popular video game. Though it may seem tangential, the purchase of Minecraft exemplified Microsoft's shift toward acquiring assets that could grow its digital ecosystem. Minecraft was a global brand with massive reach, and Microsoft recognized that it could leverage its vast cloud infrastructure to make Minecraft an even more valuable platform, extending its presence in the entertainment and education sectors. In 2016, Microsoft made a bold move with its purchase of LinkedIn for $26 billion. LinkedIn, a professional networking site with a massive user base, allowed Microsoft to tap into the growing trend of professional social networking and data-driven business intelligence. By combining LinkedIn's wealth of professional data with its own enterprise solutions, Microsoft was able to create a more robust offering to businesses, including talent management, sales, and networking solutions that became integrated with Microsoft's productivity tools and CRM platforms. In 2018, Microsoft acquired GitHub, the leading platform for software development and collaboration, for $7.5 billion. GitHub allowed Microsoft to strengthen its foothold in the developer community, providing it with a platform that developers could use to store code, collaborate on open-source projects, and build applications. The integration of GitHub with Microsoft's Azure platform marked a pivotal moment in cementing Microsoft's position as the go-to enterprise platform for developers. By diversifying through strategic acquisitions, Microsoft transitioned from a company predominantly focused on software to a global technology conglomerate. These acquisitions allowed Microsoft to broaden its scope beyond traditional software, pushing further into areas like social networking, software development, and cloud infrastructure. Lessons in adaptation and resilience. Microsoft's shift to cloud computing and enterprise software offers numerous lessons for today's technology companies. One of the key takeaways is the importance of adaptation in a rapidly changing market. In an industry where the ground shifts frequently, especially with the rise of mobile, cloud, and AI technologies, businesses need to be agile and prepared to pivot. Microsoft recognized the need to innovate and evolve with the times, shedding some of its traditional reliance on installed software and embracing the future of cloud-based services. Another key lesson is long-term resilience. Microsoft's early success, despite facing fierce competition from Apple, IBM, and later Google, underscores the importance of perseverance. The company faced multiple challenges and even legal battles, but by continuing to innovate and invest in future technologies, Microsoft managed to maintain a dominant position in the tech world. The changing face of competition: mobile, AI, and the need for agility. As Microsoft evolved from being a leading software company to a major cloud and enterprise player, the competitive landscape continued to shift. After Bill Gates stepped down from his full-time role in 2000, Microsoft found itself in a new era of tech competition. The rise of mobile computing, artificial intelligence, AI, and other emerging technologies led to an even more complex and diverse competitive environment for Microsoft. The battle for mobile, a missed opportunity. The rise of smartphones, led by Apple's iPhone and Google's Android operating systems, was a major threat to Microsoft's dominance in personal computing. Apple's iPhone revolutionized the way consumers interacted with technology, pushing for the mobile-first world that we live in today. Microsoft's efforts to capture the mobile market with Windows Phone were unsuccessful, largely because the company was slow to recognize the seismic shift toward mobile computing. Unlike the success of its Windows operating system, Microsoft failed to develop a compelling mobile ecosystem. Windows Phone, despite its clean interface and innovative features, was unable to gain significant traction in the face of Android and iOS, which had already established large user bases and app ecosystems. The company's lack of developer support, market penetration, and a fragmented mobile strategy led to Windows Phone's eventual demise. Microsoft's failure in the mobile space serves as a stark reminder that even giants like Microsoft can miss major shifts in technology. The rapid growth of mobile apps and services marked a profound change in how technology companies needed to position themselves, and Microsoft's inability to capitalize on this revolution offers an important lesson on the need for agility in an ever-changing market. The emergence of artificial intelligence. As mobile computing waned, Microsoft refocused its attention on another transformative technology, AI. AI has become one of the most important fields of innovation in the 21st century, and Microsoft quickly realized that AI could drive the next wave of technological advancement. Microsoft's strategic investments in AI, especially under the leadership of Satya Nadella, positioned the company to compete against powerful rivals like Google, Amazon, and IBM. Microsoft's AI-driven products and services started to take shape with initiatives like Cortana, an AI-based personal assistant, and Azure AI, which provides cloud-based machine learning services to developers. While Cortana's success was mixed in the consumer market, Azure AI became a cornerstone of Microsoft's strategy as more businesses began to embrace AI and machine learning technologies. In addition to Azure, Microsoft entered the AI space with the purchase of LinkedIn and GitHub, which allowed the company to combine data-driven decision-making and collaboration tools into its overall AI ecosystem. The key takeaway here is that just as Microsoft adapted to cloud computing in the early 2010s, it recognized the next major wave of technology, AI, and integrated it into its offerings. This proactive approach, coupled with aggressive investments in cloud and AI technologies, shows how Microsoft continues to evolve. Lessons in AI and strategic vision. The rise of AI represents an opportunity to learn about forward-thinking strategies in business. The ability to identify and harness emerging technologies is essential for long-term success. Microsoft's efforts to invest in AI early on, despite its setbacks in mobile, exemplify the importance of being proactive in recognizing trends that can shape the future. AI is still in its early stages, but companies that are investing heavily in the technology today are setting themselves up for future dominance, just as Microsoft did in the 1990s and 2000s. Moreover, Microsoft's experience with mobile technology provides a valuable lesson on openness and diversification. While the company failed to capture a significant piece of the mobile market, it has more than made up for it by focusing on areas where it can add value, such as AI, cloud computing, and enterprise solutions. Microsoft's refusal to simply accept failure and move on shows the importance of maintaining a long-term strategic vision. Even after missing one major trend, the company has found new paths to success by doubling down on emerging technologies. A broader legacy. The impact of Microsoft's early wars on global technology. Bill Gates' impact on the tech industry is immense. His leadership, vision, and early battles formed the foundation of modern computing. The wars Microsoft fought in the 1980s and 1990s were not just about winning in the market. They were about determining the future trajectory of personal computing, software ecosystems, and technology itself. Bill Gates' legacy is not limited to the founding of Microsoft, but extends into shaping the technological landscape as we know it. The role of Bill Gates' philanthropy. After stepping away from his full-time role at Microsoft, Bill Gates' focus shifted toward global philanthropy. Gates founded the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation in 2000, which has become one of the largest private charitable foundations in the world. His philanthropic efforts, which focus on global health, poverty alleviation, and education, have helped improve the lives of millions of people around the world. While Gates may be most famous for his role in the rise of Microsoft, his philanthropic work is shaping his legacy in a different way. The foundation has donated billions of dollars to fighting diseases like malaria and polio, improving education systems, and addressing climate change. His transition from a tech mogul to a philanthropist is a powerful reminder that technology can have a profound positive impact on society beyond business profits. The changing landscape of the tech industry. Looking forward, it is clear that Microsoft's early battles against Apple, IBM, and the forces of innovation in the 1990s were just the beginning of the company's story. Today, Microsoft's leadership role in cloud computing, AI, and enterprise software solidifies its place as one of the most influential companies in the world. The early wars show that success in tech is not only about having the best products, it's about making the right strategic decisions at the right moments. Microsoft's ability to adapt to emerging technologies and recognize opportunities in the face of competition is what continues to drive the company forward. As new challenges emerge with the rise of AI, quantum computing, and next-gen technologies, Microsoft's agility and ability to evolve will ensure that it remains a dominant player in the global technology landscape. The battle for software dominance. Early strategic moves. In the early days of Microsoft, the battles Bill Gates fought weren't just about winning customers or market share. They were about creating a dominant software ecosystem that would become the foundation of personal computing. Gates understood from the outset that for Microsoft to succeed, the company had to win on multiple fronts, providing software for both consumers and businesses, setting standards, and cultivating long-term partnerships. In this section, we'll explore the key strategic decisions that propelled Microsoft to dominance in the software industry. The vision of Bill Gates, making software ubiquitous. Bill Gates' early vision for Microsoft was ambitious: to put a computer on every desk and in every home. This vision was born out of Gates' understanding of the profound impact that software could have on personal computing. Unlike hardware manufacturers like IBM or Apple, which focused on the creation of computers, Gates knew that the true value in the personal computing revolution would come from software. The operating system was the centerpiece, and the software ecosystem around it was the bloodline that would allow computers to evolve and meet the diverse needs of users. Microsoft's early software was not particularly innovative or unique compared with its competitors, but Gates and Allen's brilliance lay in their ability to recognize the importance of creating software that was compatible with every hardware configuration. While competitors like IBM made the mistake of locking down their systems to a specific set of machines, Microsoft built software that could work with a wide variety of hardware. This approach helped ensure that Microsoft software would become ubiquitous across personal computers. In 1980, Gates and Allen made a landmark decision by partnering with IBM to provide the operating system for their personal computer, the IBM PC. At the time, IBM was the leader in the computing industry, and having their endorsement was a critical step for Microsoft. However, Gates had the foresight to realize that the key to winning this battle was not just the software, but how Microsoft would license it. Licensing over ownership, the genius of MS-DOS. Instead of selling IBM a one-time copy of an operating system, Gates and Microsoft offered IBM a license for the software, allowing them to sell the operating system to other manufacturers. This was a critical move because it enabled Microsoft to collect royalties from every PC manufacturer that used MS-DOS. Gates understood that software would dominate, not hardware, and the licensing model would ensure that Microsoft could maintain control over the software that powered personal computers. The licensing decision was the foundation for Microsoft's future dominance. While Apple's Macintosh focused on an integrated approach where software and hardware were tightly coupled, Microsoft's model was based on making its software platform available to as many hardware manufacturers as possible. This move ensured that Microsoft's operating system would become the de facto standard in personal computing. As Gates later explained, the deal with IBM helped Microsoft gain a foothold in the software industry and provided the financial resources necessary to compete with entrenched players. However, it wasn't just a matter of luck. The decision to license MS-DOS to other PC manufacturers created a massive network effect. The more PCs that were sold with MS-DOS, the more developers would be encouraged to create software for the operating system. This snowball effect ensured that Microsoft had a dominant presence in the software market, which became even more critical as the software ecosystem expanded with Office applications, spreadsheets, and other software essential to businesses. Windows and the fight for graphical user interface. In the mid-1980s, as personal computers gained traction, a new type of interface began to emerge, a graphical user interface, GUI. Apple's Macintosh, launched in 1984, was the first commercially successful personal computer to use a GUI, and it quickly became the benchmark for how users would interact with computers. By 1985, Microsoft realized that for the company to continue to compete with Apple, it needed its own GUI for MS-DOS. The result was Windows, which was first introduced as a graphical shell for MS-DOS in 1985. Windows wasn't a full operating system at this point. It was essentially an add-on that allowed users to run applications with a graphical interface. But over time, it became clear that Microsoft would need to transform Windows into a standalone operating system if it was going to compete with Apple's Mac OS. In the early versions of Windows, Microsoft faced significant challenges in competing with Apple. The Macintosh GUI was designed from the ground up with the idea of a user-friendly graphical interface. In contrast, Windows was built on top of MS-DOS, an operating system that was designed for command line use. But Gates had a plan. He saw that Microsoft could not beat Apple in terms of design and user experience, so the company took a different approach: market penetration. Instead of competing on aesthetics, Microsoft focused on making Windows the most widely available platform. It was a strategy that relied heavily on OEM partnerships, getting as many hardware manufacturers as possible to adopt and distribute Windows with their computers. The impact of IBM clones and open licensing. In 1987, Windows 2.0 was released, marking the first attempt at a real GUI-based operating system. However, Windows faced stiff competition from Apple, and in the 1990s, another challenge emerged: the rise of IBM-compatible PCs, also known as PC clones. These machines, built by companies other than IBM, used Microsoft's MS-DOS as their operating system. Gates and Microsoft saw this as an opportunity rather than a threat. Microsoft's licensing model, which allowed third-party manufacturers to sell PCs running MS-DOS, meant that the operating system quickly became the dominant software in the personal computing market. In 1990, Microsoft launched Windows 3.0, which was a huge success. It was the first version of Windows that could truly compete with the Macintosh, and its popularity accelerated Microsoft's dominance. At the heart of this success was the open licensing model. By the early 1990s, Microsoft had established itself as the go-to software company, with its operating system running on virtually all personal computers. The decision to make MS-DOS and later Windows available to multiple manufacturers created a vast network effect, making it almost impossible for other companies to compete. Apple versus Microsoft, the battle of operating systems. From the beginning, Microsoft's journey was marked by fierce competition, particularly with Apple. Apple's vision was about creating an integrated, user-friendly experience with a focus on design and creativity, while Microsoft's philosophy centered on providing software that could be used on any computer. This difference in approach led to early clashes that set the stage for a long-standing rivalry between the two companies. The early days of competition. In the early 1980s, Microsoft and Apple were both part of the nascent personal computer industry, but their approaches were drastically different. Apple's Macintosh revolutionized the user experience by introducing a graphical user interface that was intuitive and visually appealing. Meanwhile, Microsoft, with its MS-DOS operating system, used a command line interface, a much more technical and difficult way for users to interact with their computers. Apple quickly rose to prominence with the release of the Macintosh in 1984, capturing the imaginations of consumers and professional users alike. But Bill Gates was acutely aware that Microsoft needed a graphical interface to remain competitive. Windows, introduced in 1985, was Microsoft's answer to the Macintosh. It was a bold move, but it didn't come without controversy. In 1988, Apple filed a lawsuit against Microsoft, accusing the company of stealing its graphical user interface. The case went on for years, with Apple arguing that Windows had infringed on the unique design of the Macintosh. The legal battle between Apple and Microsoft over the graphical user interface reached its climax in the 1994 trial, where the court ruled in favor of Microsoft, stating that the graphical user interface was not proprietary to Apple. This outcome was a major victory for Microsoft, which was able to continue developing Windows without significant legal interference. However, Apple's lawsuit highlighted a key point of contention in the rivalry between the two companies: the nature of innovation and intellectual property. Microsoft's strategy was centered around quick adaptation and replication, taking the best elements of competitors' products and making them more widely available. In contrast, Apple believed in the unique design and experience of its products, seeking to control both hardware and software for a seamless user experience. This difference in vision would shape the future of both companies and their cultures. The rise of Microsoft and the shift in the market. In the 1990s, Microsoft's market share in the personal computer space grew exponentially, while Apple struggled with market penetration. Microsoft Windows was now the dominant operating system on the PC, and with the success of Windows 95, Microsoft reached new heights. The battle over the graphical user interface was over, and Apple found itself struggling to keep pace. While Apple continued to focus on innovation and design, Microsoft's ability to work with a vast array of hardware manufacturers allowed it to dominate the operating system market. This focus on open licensing was key to Microsoft's success. Unlike Apple, which relied on a tightly controlled hardware ecosystem, Microsoft allowed third-party manufacturers to build their PCs and sell them with Windows. This move helped Microsoft expand its reach far beyond what Apple could achieve. Despite their rivalry, it was clear that Apple and Microsoft were both key players in shaping the future of personal computing. Apple's commitment to user experience and design and Microsoft's drive for market share and compatibility set the stage for their respective futures. While Apple would continue to pursue its vision of a premium, closed ecosystem, Microsoft's focus on openness and licensing would prove to be its greatest strength in the 1990s and 2000s. Lessons from the Apple-Microsoft rivalry. The Apple-Microsoft rivalry offers important lessons for today's tech industry. The key takeaway is the power of ecosystems. Microsoft's ability to create an open platform that could be used by multiple manufacturers was a decisive factor in its success. At the same time, Apple's focus on delivering an integrated user experience shows the value of vertical integration. For today's technology companies, the decision to build open versus closed ecosystems is just as important. Companies like Google and Amazon have built open platforms, Android and AWS respectively, that encourage third-party involvement and adoption, much like Microsoft did with Windows. Conversely, Apple's closed ecosystem continues to differentiate it in the mobile space, where seamless integration between hardware and software provides a compelling user experience. Dominance in the 1990s, Windows 95 and the Internet revolution. By the mid-1990s, Microsoft had firmly established itself as the dominant software company in the world. With the success of Windows 95, Microsoft cemented its position as the leader in the personal computer market. Windows 95 was not just an operating system, it was a cultural milestone. It represented the arrival of modern computing for the masses. Windows 95 combined the best features of Windows 3.1 with a sleek new interface that included the Start menu, taskbar, and improved file management. The release of Windows 95 was accompanied by an extensive marketing campaign, which emphasized the ease of use and the power of the new operating system. It was a critical moment for Microsoft as it helped solidify the company's dominance in the operating system market. The Internet Revolution and Microsoft's response. In the mid-1990s, the rise of the Internet changed the technology landscape. The World Wide Web had gained popularity, and companies like Netscape and AOL began to dominate the emerging online market. Microsoft, initially slow to embrace the Internet, quickly realized that the Internet would play a central role in the future of computing. In response to the browser wars, Microsoft introduced Internet Explorer in 1995 as a competitor to Netscape Navigator. The competition between these two browsers became one of the defining battles of the 1990s. Microsoft's strategy was clear: use its market dominance in operating systems to make Internet Explorer the default browser for users. This strategy led to monopolistic practices that would later be the focus of antitrust investigations. The browser wars: Internet Explorer versus Netscape. By the mid-1990s, the World Wide Web was rapidly changing the digital landscape. Personal computers were no longer just for word processing or spreadsheets. The Internet was transforming the way people communicated, shopped, and accessed information. The browser war that began between Microsoft's Internet Explorer, IE, and Netscape Navigator was pivotal in determining the future of both the Internet and the software industry. In 1995, as Microsoft began to recognize the significance of the web, it launched Internet Explorer 1.0. At the time, Netscape Navigator was already the dominant browser, known for its speed, user-friendly design, and ability to display images, making the Internet a more dynamic and visually appealing experience. Netscape had been a trailblazer in the early days of web browsing, capturing a large share of the market. Microsoft's strategy was not just to compete with Netscape, it was to use its existing dominance in operating systems to crush its rival. The tactic Microsoft employed was aggressive. It bundled Internet Explorer with Windows 95 as part of the operating system. This move effectively made Internet Explorer the default browser for millions of users around the world, leading to the rapid decline of Netscape Navigator's market share. This was a pivotal moment in the battle for dominance in the Internet space, and it set the stage for Microsoft's antitrust troubles in the years that followed. In 1998, Netscape Communications Corporation filed an antitrust lawsuit against Microsoft, accusing the software giant of using its monopoly in the operating system market to crush competition in the web browser market. Microsoft's decision to integrate Internet Explorer into Windows and prevent users from easily removing it was central to this case. Netscape argued that Microsoft's monopolistic practices stifled innovation and forced users into a single choice for browsing the web. While Netscape's Navigator was initially the more popular browser, Microsoft's strategic move turned the tide in favor of Internet Explorer. By bundling IE with Windows, Microsoft could leverage the dominance of the operating system to ensure that millions of users were exposed to its browser without needing to actively download or install it. This practice created an unfair competitive advantage, which would become a major point of contention in the legal case against Microsoft. The Department of Justice, DOJ, filed a lawsuit against Microsoft in 1998, accusing the company of violating U.S. antitrust laws. The case claimed that Microsoft was using its dominance in the PC market to unlawfully dominate the browser market, which ultimately resulted in a monopolistic hold over both. The legal battle was prolonged and became one of the most significant antitrust cases in U.S. history. The outcome of the browser wars. In 2001, Microsoft was found guilty of violating U.S. antitrust laws. However, instead of breaking up Microsoft as the DOJ had initially proposed, the company reached a settlement that imposed restrictions on its business practices. The settlement mandated that Microsoft share its application programming interfaces, APIs, with third-party companies, enabling them to create software that could work with Windows. It also imposed restrictions on how Microsoft could bundle its products in future versions of Windows. While Microsoft's legal woes were significant, the browser wars were ultimately won by Microsoft in terms of market dominance. Internet Explorer became the most widely used browser for a significant portion of the next decade, but the competition didn't end there. By the mid-2000s, other browsers, such as Mozilla Firefox and Google Chrome, began to challenge Microsoft's reign. The competition led to a more vibrant and diverse browser market, eventually causing Microsoft to lose its commanding share. The browser wars revealed important lessons for the tech industry, particularly about the potential dangers of monopolistic behavior. Microsoft's aggressive tactics, while successful in the short term, led to regulatory scrutiny that damaged the company's reputation and forced it to shift its business practices. The battle demonstrated that competition and innovation are essential to a thriving market, and it highlighted the risks that come with relying too heavily on a single product or service. The role of antitrust in the tech industry. The outcome of Microsoft's antitrust case and the lessons learned from the browser wars have continued to shape the tech industry to this day. Since the late 1990s, antitrust regulators have been more vigilant about monopolistic behavior in the tech sector, particularly with the rise of companies like Google, Apple, Amazon, and Facebook. As these companies have grown to dominate their respective markets, the issue of market concentration and anti-competitive practices has resurfaced in regulatory discussions. One key aspect of the Microsoft case was the importance of government intervention in preventing monopolistic behavior in the tech sector. While Microsoft's practices were undoubtedly effective in gaining market share, they also demonstrated how unfair competitive advantages can stifle innovation and harm consumers. The case marked a turning point in how the tech industry was viewed by regulators, leading to increased scrutiny of industry giants and their market influence. The Microsoft antitrust case also set the stage for future competition law debates around the world. As tech companies like Google and Facebook began to amass data and influence, the lessons from the Microsoft case were drawn upon to assess whether these companies were using their power unfairly. Governments and regulators now recognize the need to balance market power with the need for healthy competition to encourage new ideas, products, and services. The emergence of the Internet, a changing market for Microsoft. As the 1990s came to a close, the landscape of the technology industry was fundamentally changing. The emergence of the Internet and the rapid expansion of the World Wide Web transformed how people interacted with computers. This was a pivotal moment in Microsoft's history as the company faced a new set of challenges from emerging internet companies that were redefining the digital experience. Microsoft, traditionally known for its software-driven approach, had to shift gears and figure out how it could dominate the internet-driven world. The rise of internet services. In the 1990s, as the internet began to take off, companies like AOL and Netscape began providing internet services that would eventually compete with Microsoft's core offerings. AOL, for example, built a platform that combined an internet service provider with instant messaging, email, and chat rooms, services that were essential for navigating the web in its early days. Microsoft, which had always been focused on the PC, was initially slow to recognize the importance of the Internet. The company had little to no presence in the emerging Internet services market, while companies like AOL and Netscape were becoming essential parts of many users' daily online experiences. This was a critical gap for Microsoft, and Gates realized the need to shift the company's strategy toward integrating the Internet into its software. Microsoft's Internet Explorer, while a key player in the browser wars, wasn't enough to ensure the company's dominance in the Internet space. Gates' solution was to pivot Microsoft's focus to Internet services and web-based applications. The result was Microsoft Network, MSN, launched in 1995 as an attempt to offer a comprehensive suite of Internet services. MSN initially served as an internet portal, providing access to news, information, and email, and was later integrated into Microsoft's broader strategy of creating web-based applications. At the same time, Microsoft's Windows 95 included an internet browser and built-in internet support, making it easier for users to connect to the web. Microsoft was also quick to develop a suite of internet-based software applications, such as Outlook Express for email and Microsoft Messenger for instant messaging. The company's challenge was not just to compete with companies like AOL and Netscape, but to establish itself as a dominant player in the emerging digital services market. Microsoft's big internet play, acquiring Hotmail and investing in search. In 1997, Microsoft made its first major acquisition in the internet space with the purchase of Hotmail, one of the world's first web-based email services. This was a critical move, as Hotmail was gaining popularity with users who preferred email services that could be accessed from any computer rather than relying on local email clients like Outlook. By acquiring Hotmail, Microsoft not only expanded its email capabilities, but also increased its presence in the rapidly growing internet services market. However, Hotmail was just the beginning. Gates recognized that the search engine market was another critical area in the internet space. As search engines like Yahoo and Google began to dominate the market, Microsoft's lack of a competitive search offering was becoming a liability. In 2000, the company launched MSN Search, which later evolved into Bing, aiming to take on Google's near monopoly in the search space. Despite these efforts, Microsoft struggled to catch up to Google's dominance in search. Google's search engine was faster, more reliable, and more efficient than MSN Search. And by the time Microsoft launched Bing in 2009, Google had already become the dominant player. This shift towards search and internet-based services marked a significant turning point for Microsoft, as the company needed to realign its strategy to cope with the growing dominance of web services in all areas of computing. The shift to web-based computing, cloud computing as the future. While Microsoft's initial internet efforts didn't initially result in the same kind of dominance it had achieved in the desktop market, the company's experience with the internet was invaluable in shaping its future strategy. The real breakthrough for Microsoft came in the 2010s, when the company embraced cloud computing as its primary growth strategy. The rise of cloud computing changed the nature of how software was delivered and used. Rather than relying on desktop software, consumers and businesses alike began shifting toward web-based applications that could be accessed from any device with an internet connection. This shift created new opportunities for Microsoft to provide services like Office 365, which allowed users to access productivity tools through the cloud. Microsoft's cloud platform, Azure, also became a major competitor to Amazon Web Services, AWS, the leader in cloud computing. Azure allowed Microsoft to offer businesses access to servers, databases, and other cloud-based infrastructure services. This shift toward the cloud marked a crucial change for Microsoft, signaling its commitment to remaining relevant in an internet-driven world. The lessons from Microsoft's initial internet efforts were clear. Web-based computing was the future, and the company needed to adapt to this new reality. While Microsoft missed the early opportunities in internet services and search, its commitment to the cloud ultimately positioned it for future growth in the digital economy. The changing landscape of competition. Google, Amazon, and the tech giants. As Microsoft entered the 2000s and 2010s, the landscape of technology was drastically changing. The rise of Google, Amazon, and Apple had already begun to threaten Microsoft's dominance in both software and hardware. Each of these companies had taken a unique approach to the technology landscape, and they were poised to reshape industries in ways that Microsoft had not anticipated. In this section, we will examine how these emerging tech giants presented new challenges to Microsoft and how the company responded to these evolving competitive pressures. Google, the search engine revolution and ad dominance. By the early 2000s, Google had firmly established itself as the dominant player in search engines, and its advertising model had transformed the way companies approached digital marketing. Google's rise was rapid, and its Google search engine, followed by products like Gmail, Google Maps, and Google Docs, created an ecosystem that kept users deeply integrated with its products. While Microsoft was still focused on Windows and Office, Google's shift into software and services, especially web-based applications, was a direct challenge to Microsoft's traditional model. The company also had a huge advantage in the form of data, with billions of users feeding data into Google's algorithms every day. This massive data pool allowed Google to continually improve its search engine and other services, making it nearly impossible for competitors to catch up. For Microsoft, the challenge from Google was both strategic and cultural. Microsoft had to not only compete in the search and advertising markets, but also rethink its software development strategy. This meant moving toward cloud-based services, improving its search capabilities with Bing, and embracing new technologies like artificial intelligence and machine learning to keep up with Google's innovations. Amazon: dominance in cloud computing and e-commerce. While Google was redefining search and advertising, Amazon was shifting the focus of retail and cloud computing. In the early 2000s, Amazon was already known for its e-commerce platform, but the company's biggest leap forward came in cloud computing. With the launch of Amazon Web Services, or AWS, in 2006, Amazon changed the way businesses approached cloud infrastructure. AWS gave businesses the ability to rent computing power and storage, allowing them to scale operations without the upfront cost of maintaining data centers. Amazon's dominance in the cloud space was a direct challenge to Microsoft's Azure platform. While Microsoft had made inroads into the cloud computing space, Amazon's first-mover advantage and vast data center infrastructure helped AWS become the leading cloud platform for businesses worldwide. This forced Microsoft to rethink its cloud strategy, focusing on innovation and offering features that would appeal to enterprise customers. Apple: the mobile revolution and consumer ecosystems. While Google and Amazon challenged Microsoft in cloud computing and data, Apple presented a new challenge in the form of mobile computing. With the launch of the iPhone in 2007, Apple transformed the tech landscape by creating an integrated ecosystem where hardware, software, and services were seamlessly connected. Apple's success with mobile devices, both smartphones and tablets, shook Microsoft's dominance in personal computing. While Microsoft did attempt to enter the mobile space with Windows Mobile, it was unable to compete with Apple's iPhone, which offered a more user-friendly design, app ecosystem, and seamless integration with iOS. Apple's ability to control both hardware and software allowed it to create a premium experience for users, making its products attractive to a wide range of consumers. Microsoft's strategic response. To address these emerging threats, Microsoft had to undergo a fundamental shift in its strategy. The company responded by embracing the cloud, pivoting to mobile, and investing heavily in artificial intelligence, or AI. The company's cloud-first strategy under CEO Satya Nadella emphasized services like Azure, Office 365, and Dynamics 365. These initiatives aim to move Microsoft beyond its legacy desktop software and into a future where cloud services, mobile devices, and AI would play a dominant role. By the 2010s, Microsoft had transformed from a software company focused on Windows to a cloud-based tech giant. The company's acquisition of LinkedIn in 2016 and GitHub in 2018, along with its focus on Azure, helped position Microsoft as a major player in the enterprise and developer markets. These moves highlighted Microsoft's ability to adapt and evolve, responding to new market dynamics and ensuring that the company remained a dominant force in the industry. The competitive advantage of adaptability. The emergence of new competitors like Google, Amazon, and Apple underscored the importance of adaptability for Microsoft. The company had long dominated the desktop and enterprise software markets, but it needed to pivot in order to maintain its relevance in a rapidly changing technological landscape. Through its cloud-first strategy, Microsoft not only maintained its competitive edge, but also capitalized on new opportunities, ensuring that it would continue to play a central role in the tech industry.